and welcome back to AdBits. This episode is supported by 2.0 Film. We service productions across Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Northern Italy, and Austria. We do fast turnarounds, top-tier crews, and we have stunning locations. If you've got any bids for 2.0 Film, give me a call. So today's guest is Riccardo Fredro, co-founder of Anima Studios. Riccardo built Anima with his closest friends. What started as what I understand as late night experiments between mates is now one of the most exciting AI studios in Europe. In under a year, they've gone from testing tools to delivering real campaigns and winning major recognition. He didn't come through film school or agencies. He came from tech, sales, and systems. So today is about how that happened, what worked, what didn't, and what it means for production now. Riccardo, welcome to AdBits. So let's start at the beginning. Before Anima, you were in newspaper tech, sales leadership, incubation, and go-to-market. That's not the usual route into creative production. How did this shift happen?
It's quite an interesting story. So I think I have to take it a step back to explain how I eventually ended up doing this, because so I have a background in business administration, and I had a double degree master in Milan and Brussels on innovation and entrepreneurship. So I think the main engine about me starting a company, I would say, comes from that lifelong passion that I had for starting something new, innovative. I'm a very curious person, so I think that's where it all in fact started. And I worked at Twipe. Twipe is this news tech company, as you correctly pointed out, software platform, where basically for 6 years, it was my first working experience. I've been on the edge of building news tech, and that includes reading experiences, creating products that are able to form habits with people, and eventually also personalization. So when AI came out, there I was a business developer, sales team manager for the most part, but because it was a startup, eventually grew to a scale-up. Basically, you wear different hats, right? And because of my background and curiosity, when AI came out, I was assigned a team to actually explore how AI could be implemented into a news workflow. So I work on things like from the news of today, we receive all the data from the newspapers, create an automatic podcast that summarizes the news of the day. Or, for example, create a quiz about the news of today to test the reader's understanding, so that whole notion of gamification. So I really deep dive into the technology quite early. And that sparked all sorts of curiosity, especially again because of my master's. So I really started thinking day and night, okay, but what is this technology? How is it going to change the world? And I could not be more excited than to jump into it. So I actually, although I come from tech, I always loved literature. I always loved creative efforts. And so that's what eventually led me to creating Anima Studios. So basically, with my best friend, Nicolò, who's today the creative director of Anima Studios, he used to work in the Italian Fashion Chamber Council. I don't know what's the name in English, but basically it's the company organizing the Fashion Week in Milan. We were far away. He's in Milan, I'm in Brussels. And as a way sort of to stay connected, I would say, and to test this new technology, we decided to basically have a creative endeavor. And so we looked at one shared passion that we had, which was penny dreadfuls. I don't know if you're familiar with what they are.
No, what are they?
So penny dreadfuls are these Victorian age short novels, 8 to 15 pages long, basically. That's where, as the name suggested, basically sold for pennies, and there were horror stories, penny dreadfuls, right?
Yes.
And what I find really interesting about that concept is the fact that, and it goes back to my experience at Twipe, it was a product that created a habit. So people were basically going back week after week because the stories were hanging on a cliffhanger to buy the next installment. And so they developed this sort of literature series that were sold for pennies week after week. And so we look at that and we said, you know what, like it would be super freaking cool if there was such a concept on TikTok or on social media where you basically receive a story every week and you can consume it at your own leisure, in your own free time. It takes very little amount of time. So it's something that you could consume while you go to the toilet or while you're commuting, So when you have those empty spots of time, and that's understanding that framework of when people consume products and media really comes from my tech background and my experience at Twipe. So there, basically, I understood, okay, here there is a huge opportunity. Let's jump into it. And back then, trust me, Alex, the technology was absolutely crappy. To keep anything consistent for a duration longer than 15 seconds, it was a nightmare. You had to train LoRa's. So you had to be a little bit technical, which luckily I was. And eventually, we started crafting these stories. And I swear to you, we start publishing on TikTok these short sci-fi horror stories. And after the second or third, I think we started hitting 100K views on each.
Amazing.
And so we're like, okay, there is an interest for this. And we saw also the engagement on the comments, is this a movie? When is it going to be released? Where is this coming from? Who wrote this story? All sorts of things. And we were actually pretty clever because we played a little bit on conspiracy theories or more the ancient gods that visited the earth. And there's a lot of community around this kind of stuff. So people were super hyped. And so we kept doing it. And at that time, we're really doing it during the nights and the weekends, right? So because we were working our 9-to-5 jobs, it was just a passion. It was a way for us to connect. But then it continued growing. At a certain point, after I think 4 or 5 months, we were hitting millions of views. So one of our clips, I think, went for 18 million views, so just a single one. And in total, if I round up the numbers to today, we're well over 120 million views, 600,000 followers. So crazy audience that we develop. But there is a catch. Basically, in Italy and in Belgium, there is no monetization program for views when it comes to TikTok. The only way that you have to monetize is to basically go and do live streaming sessions where you get tipped or do partnerships and sponsorship for your content. And we're not really into either of those options, to be honest. We're not people that like to stream on TikTok and do all that kind of stuff. So eventually we started looking around. We realized, okay, we're probably at the forefront worldwide into the world of creating videos with generative AI. We're among the first users for sure. And because of our capabilities and our backgrounds, we're actually able to already deliver decent quality. So then we started looking around and we said, okay, where is that there is an absolute need for this kind of product? And here again, my background in innovation, developing a business model really came handy because I immediately realized companies are paying north of 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. It depends on the ad campaign for 30-second videos that sometimes span through multiple locations, actors, makeup, you name it. Lots of complexity, lots of things that have to go right to shoot 30 seconds of video. I was like, damn, here there is a gigantic opportunity, right? So to remove all that friction and allow basically companies to do two things. One is break that famous triangle of cost, timing, right, and quality, where normally you have to pick two. We realize, okay, if the technology keeps improving at the pace that we're seeing it improves, it's not going to be long before you can break that equation, right? And just say, hey, I can deliver high quality content at the speed of culture for a fraction of the traditional cost. And when we realized that that was the direction that the market was going, we basically involved two other friends of ours, one with a background in advertisement, more on the sound part. So it was more of a sounding board, I would say, for how the industry worked until now, and also great sound designer. So it adds that little spice on our productions. And then Florin, who's our other co-founder, who has a background also in tech and sales, so that we could have a business infrastructure. So yeah, that's basically how we ended up founding Anima Studios. I would say it's a realization of passion, I would say. So the passion for storytelling that we always had that comes from literature, although we never explicited it because, it's still a very difficult industry to enter. You have to invest a lot of time. if you want to shoot something, it requires a lot of buying equipment and so on and so forth. So really, this new technology basically allowed us to pursue a passion that we always had, but we were never able to actually fulfill. And really like spotting a need that back then maybe was not fully fleshed out, but we really saw it like a year or 2 years ahead. That's eventually that was the direction that the market was going.
Amazing. And you're a great spokesperson for this company because you're able to articulate it so well. Well done. And it sounds so exciting, obviously. I love the idea of the passion project and also, seeing immediate results. It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So going on to the next bit, building with friends is this section. You've built this with people you trust. That's powerful, but it's also risky, some would say. What worked about building a company with friends? Was it harder than you expected? How did you protect the friendships while growing the business? All of those things.
Yeah, it's a very good question because actually people struggle quite a lot. There's horror stories about people starting businesses with their friends and losing both the business and the friends. So of course, that is something that we always keep in mind, first of all. So we're aware of the stakes and that kind of helps. We were really like in the early days, like making promises to each other, not on written paper, but we had to acknowledge that that is something that happens. And we were like, guys, like the first rule of this company is that no matter freaking what, friendship comes first. And like we have to realize that whenever we give feedback to each other or we are in disagreement on a specific business decision, like we do not put egos in the way, like in between like what we're doing. So that was like I think like clarity and being very upfront about what we're doing, how we're doing it. It really helped us like avoid a lot of the issues that you normally have when you're in these situations. And what actually worked very well is the fact that we trust each other and that we have been working in a way or another, not professionally maybe, but like in life. And I have 1,000 stories because I know my co-founders were basically 20 years, right? So we were battling together through life. And I think like once you gain that experience, also collaborating in a professional environment becomes so much easier because like we can catch each other's ideas very quickly. We know our personalities, we know our pitfalls, we know our strengths. And so it was very natural to play on all of these things and leveraging them towards the good rather than the negative. So I think that's what worked ultimately is trust, like a blinded trust. I could give the keys to my life to any of my co-founders and I know that they will treat them with respect. So voila.
Excellent. And did you ever think this could fall apart if we're not careful? I mean, I think you sort of touched on it, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, it happens quite regularly, right? Like that we have discussions that we don't agree on one thing, or there is the feeling that you're stepping into each other's role because we're friends, and then you're talking it over a beer, right? So like you're saying, but here you could do this, and it sometimes happened between me and our creative director, where I'm like, but here, and it was like, dude, calm down, right? So it sometimes does happen that you think, okay, this might all fall apart. But at the end of the day, to be honest, business is all about taking risk. And it's part of the game. And I think like the risk is worth the, let's say, award. And the award is having a business with your best friends, with the people you love the most, waking up, having calls with them rather than with strangers, or like colleagues. I have nothing against colleagues. I'm working in a professional environment, but eventually, just to give you the, let's say in a nutshell, what it means, we have a WhatsApp group where it all started. It's called Journey to Freedom, right? And we really believe this is like the way that we have to build something together that will make us last longer. And I once saw this chart that it's crazy, about how people spend time with which people you spend time with as you age. And you see like friends going down, family, like, well, with your partner going up, but eventually you spend most of your time with your colleagues and with your partner, right? And if you can manage to basically get your colleagues and friends together, I think like that's the sweet spot. So we're really like working towards that. And as long as it lasts, I'm gonna be happy. So I'm not very scared. It can happen that it will crumble apart, but I'm not scared at all.
I love that. I love that answer. It's such a thoughtful way of thinking about life, and I think also taking risks. You've got to take risks in business. I think that's a really interesting point. It's obvious, but at the same, it may sound obvious, but I don't think it is for a lot of people. You've really got to go for it. And you've got nothing to lose ultimately. This could all blow up tomorrow, but it doesn't sound like it is. And with the trajectory and the way you guys are thinking, it sounds all good. I'm very pleased for you. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about speed and execution of the business. Obviously, you've grown very fast, and most studios take years to get traction, but you've done it in months. And so why?
I think like that has two components. One is when you studied innovation and entrepreneurship, like the first thing that they tell you is that you have to search for product market fit, right? So your service, your product should address a clear need in the market. And I think like I was always very like careful in starting a business, although it was always a dream of mine. Like I never started a business because I could never find like something that was clear as day. Hey, there's a need. Here is the solution. And they teach you in school, and it's actually true. That's like if you eventually find that product market fit, things are going to evolve very rapidly, and that's what happened to us, right? As I said before, like companies spend a fortune to produce ads. And it's slow. It's really like a painful process. We bring a solution to that. And whenever we went out and talked to people, I swear to you, nobody that said, I don't know. Everybody was like, yeah, let's freaking do it, right? Because the value proposition is so obvious. So I think that's one component. The second one was indeed the trust that I mentioned before. The fact that we could take decisions very quickly in our own areas and not having to discuss too much, because there was a lot of trust between the co-founders. And then I think the third thing is that although we use AI for generative purposes, so to create our service and products, so the advertisements, the TikToks or the IPs that we're developing, we're also using AI for our internal processes. And that makes a whole lot of difference. Like most companies get swamped, and even us, we did, like in just starting the company, like going to lawyers, you have to pay a lot of fees, going to whatever you think it's needed, websites, like it takes a lot of time and a lot of knowledge to pull something off. And AI has literally paved the way for us to do that at 10 times the speed. Like I know a little bit of HTML and CSS, but it would take me probably like a year to code a website. And now I can do it in a week, maybe. So you see like AI is not only like something that we use for the services, it's also something that allows us to enable the business. And I think like the combination of these three factors was really what allowed us to scale quite fast.
Interesting. That's very interesting. And what did you focus on first? I mean, I suppose you've already answered this. You mentioned the Victorian, the little shorts that you've developed.
Yeah.
But what else? I mean, moving on from that, like that was the genesis of the business, the genesis of the idea of working in this area. But what are you focusing? Yeah, what are you focusing on now? Is it clients? I mean, and also is it clients? Is it tech? Is it the process, reputation, survival?
Yeah. So I think in the very beginning, it was really like finding the clients and building the portfolio. So I think like in the very beginning, that was the main focus. So because we didn't have a name and we don't come from traditional production, it was quite difficult to land the big clients first, right? So what we did was actually start with a value proposition that was, hey, we're democratizing access to cinematic quality ads for smaller brands. And so we first went to the smaller ones to do two things, basically to finance ourselves, to build a portfolio, and eventually also to streamline our process, because this is all new, right? Like nobody knows how to do, well, today, yes, but back then nobody knew how to do an ad with a generative AI, right? So we really have to test it out. So first go-to-market approach was, okay, let's go to the smaller brands. They have less risk. They're going to be more prone to invest. They don't have the budget for a big production. So let's go there. And once we validated and created the portfolio, we really started investing into creating our own IP. And why we did that is because brands don't want to take risks, as I already said. And so they want to see something that it's already high quality. And basically investing in our own creations and not client work allowed us to showcase the potential. And then basically we leverage all of this, the portfolio, the clients, the processes, to actually build a lead generation machine effectively, which was mainly my own LinkedIn account, I would say, where basically I started sharing insights of starting a creative studio. I started sharing some of our work, having hot takes, whatever you name it. And basically from there, I was not so sure it would work, but actually started working very well, where I started getting in touch with the people from the industry, people from the traditional production that were like, starting to understand, okay, this is going to be a big disruption. One of the first people actually that we met was a guest of your podcast, Orlando Woods. So hi, Orlando, if you're watching, a great person, by the way. And so that's where actually gave us also the conviction when we started realizing, okay, we can have a conversation with these industry veterans and people that have been in the business of filmmaking or advertisement for so long and still being able to, provide value, provide insights. I think that was the moment where we actually realized, okay, there is something in here. And if I look at it today, where we're putting most of our focus is basically two things. Well, I would say maybe three things. One is the technological backbone. We're collaborating now with a San Francisco startup that is still in like a waiting list kind of situation. So it's not public yet, but we were their very first users ever. And we're working closely with their developers to develop a workflow for creating products with generative AI. So videos, movies, and so on and so forth. And that is very key because, trust me, people think it's easy to create an advertisement or a movie with AI. It's absolutely excruciating. So you still have to maintain consistency across the shots and the lighting and the little morphing and stuff. It takes so many repetitions to actually get what you want that if you do it just stitching together different tools, downloading to your desktop all the assets, uploading somewhere else, you just lose so much time that it becomes unfeasible. It's very hard to maintain consistency. It's almost impossible to collaborate because it's such an individual effort. So first priority, absolutely getting the workflow right. And we're blessed that we met the guys from Preview, this San Francisco startup, because we're involved with their tech team. They're building around our workflow. They bring their own insights from the tech part. So I think that has been an absolutely great collaboration. I think one point of focus that we have. The second is now landing larger clients. So we're working towards landing some of the big names in the industry. By the way, we don't work only directly with brands. We also work together with other marketing agencies and production houses that are wanting to experiment with generative AI and don't want to make the investments of going up front. Okay, I'm hiring 3, 4, 5 people to do deliveries. Why do we want to land the big customers is obvious, I guess. It's because of portfolio, brand recognition, and so on and so forth. So that has been the second focus. The third is keeping the focus on our own IP. Because eventually, although we started in the ad business, I think eventually what will make sense for companies will be to have your own generative AI team internally. And why that it relates to the speed of culture. I always use this sentence because I think it's very important. If you want to do communication on social, on Instagram, on TikTok, or whatever it is, you probably want to have, for the sake of speed, an internal team. So I think the larger brands eventually will all have in their marketing departments a generative AI team that can deliver and communicate and respond to what is happening in the world. So where does that leave us? It leaves us more on the storytelling side. So that's why we heavily invested. I think we spent the whole of the Christmas holiday and a big chunk of January building a 17 minutes long movie.
Yes,
That
I
I
saw
think,
this. Yeah,
yeah, you saw that.
absolutely.
And like it's not released yet fully. We just released bits. We submitted it to a festival. But I think that proves or is an attempt to prove that eventually you can also start building entertainment. And that space is huge. Think of Netflix, Amazon, all the platforms. They need content constantly. Producing high quality content, again, takes a lot of time. So I think eventually there's going to be a space where entertainment is partly created with AI. And I think this 17 minutes movie, Existence Without Purpose, that we made is an attempt to prove that a format like, for example, Not That Robot, so that it's wildly popular.
Well, I was going to say, it's funny when I heard you mentioning that before. I mean, I was literally pitching that idea to someone, you know, because that's where generative AI can work at the moment in those small captions perfectly
Yes,
well. And I watch Love Death because I think it's an excellent. I love that series,
amazing.
and you
One of
can
my
just think,
favorites.
yes, I agree. It's so good, and you can just see it working there perfectly. You could create your own brand, you could create your own IP, but you know they've done that, and you can do your own, and it works so well. And why wouldn't people buy it?
And by the way, like, let me be clear, we're not there yet. Like, that level of quality is not yet achievable. But I think if I have to abstract the progression of the technology in the year and a half, 2 years that I've been working on this, we started that we could barely do images. And now we can do 17 minutes of pretty decent consistency. And we still have not experimented with what I think is going to be the ultimate jackpot, which is hybrid productions, where you basically use generative AI for most of the production, but then for things where the human touch, the human soul is very important, like acting, the performance, you actually record real actors, and then let's say like really elevate the quality and the potential of your IP through AI. And I think like when you start seeing, and I think like a Clean 3.0 is coming out, so there's a new technology coming out, the Genie models for the word models. I think when all of these will start to converge, you'll really be able to produce like this kind of productions. I wouldn't say fairly easy because again, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's in fact more difficult because if you think about it, it's like when you have cameras, you have 10 cameras to record the scene. All cameras agree on what they're recording, right? So the perspectives, the spatial relationship between the characters and all of that, it's basically done when you're recording. When you're doing it with AI, you have to think. So the person creating it has to think of every single freaking detail. So that's super difficult, but it saves you the whole of organizing for a shooting, getting the actors, getting the makeup, getting all on sets, building big sets. Like if you, when we release the movie, you'll see it. There are certain sets with like monumental, gigantic faces,
No, I've seen it.
waterfalls. Yeah,
I've seen the bit. It's amazing. It's
I
amazing, and
mean,
it's
how
amazing to
much
be
will
able to
that
do the
cost?
17 minutes like you're talking about.
Exactly. And I think like that's where I want to confirm what you said. I think the sweet spot will be the 5 to 20 minutes productions, where basically the upfront cost of getting the sets and organizing all of that, it's so big compared to the actual amount of footage that you're going to produce. That's effectively AI becomes a valuable alternative.
I think also with everything I ever watch, movies wise, I've mentioned this before when I was speaking to some other people working in generative AI. I feel that there's been a marvelization of the world in movies. You know, it's like it's overwhelming. And when you go back to model making, as you saw before in like older movies, and it's about layers and
Yeah.
reality. If you can start filling in with reality layers, whether it's a model or whether it's a person, all of these things, it just makes everything much richer. You've still got
Yeah.
the challenge, of course, of making a decent story. It doesn't matter how, you know, if you can't act, if you can't direct, if you're not able to deliver those performances in every way, it's no good. And someone even mentioned as well the importance of editing as well. If you're not editing properly, is a huge thing as well. There's a lot of fear about the technology, but there's also a lot of reality of you're still going to need a lot of the same people doing a lot of the same things.
And let me build on that, by the way, because one of the fears that people have is that AI is eventually going to take all these jobs. Let me just say that in our company, which is a generative AI first studio, we actually only hired so far people from traditional backgrounds, exactly because of what she said. Editing is still freaking important. It gives the pace, the tone. I mean, absolutely fundamental. So you need an editor. You need compositing, 3D modeling to make sure that the small details in a movie are still correct. And I get to the biggest point last, you still need storytellers. As you said, there's no amount of technology that will make a crappy story good. So you really have to be able to do that. And in our case, really most investments that we do as founders on a personal level is really catching up on that language of cinematography, right? So I literally just spent the whole of yesterday reading, watching like videos on the different camera movements and all of that. This is still so freaking important, and it cannot be automated. Try yourself. I mean, writing a script on an LLM or asking it to have a vision, you're going to get nothing back, right? So it's going to be crap. Human taste, human direction is still absolutely freaking important. Let me reiterate that for all the people that think that's because we play with AI, we don't recognize the importance of that.
No, I think it's really interesting. I've been a huge fan of AI. I've been obsessed, not obsessed, but I sort of had the vision of it in 2017 onwards. I worked at a couple of AI startups. And once you understand it, it's quite overwhelming. It's a bit of a moment you have.
Yeah.
But even with my love for it, I've been really recognizing with the LLMs how limited they are in lots of instances, how they'll be very quick to lie to you.
Yeah.
And I've noticed now when they're just lying to you. I literally am now saying like, "Why are you lying to me?" And then it'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." Yeah, and I'm noticing that, and I'm becoming much more conscious of that. That being said, you know, and it's interesting. You know, people are thinking, and the media is telling us, and all the people, the tech world is telling us, this is going to keep going. This is going to keep growing exponentially. It's never going to stop. It's endlessly, and we may be finding it's going to be limiting in certain areas. And once we sort of slow down, we'll be like, well, this is what it does. And that's it. You know, I'm sure it'll keep going. But
machine. I mean, in the end, it's just a prediction machine, right?
Yes.
It just predicts what's the best next word. That doesn't mean that it has consciousness. It doesn't mean that it has taste.
Exactly.
It just looks at what humans have produced so far. And basically, based on what you ask it for, it was just trying to match mathematically. Oh, probably this guy wants to hear this, right? And don't get me wrong, it is a super powerful tool. If you use it for coding, for example, which I do, I know my way around coding, but I never learned the grammar of coding languages. It allows me now to be able to deploy a solution, to write a script, to do whatever I want very easily. But you shouldn't trust it with your life or with your business at all without revising what the content is. Also because otherwise it sounds all of the same, to be honest. Like it's something that we try to stay away. Actually, I have my own prompts where I actually say, "Hey, speak like a human." Don't
I
use
literally say that. Yeah, I've got those as well. It's like I don't know M dashes and things like that. It's like
exactly.
Yeah,
because otherwise it sounds all the same. You still need human revision for sure on this process. And I think there's still a long way to go. And even if we were to stop right now, where the technology is today, I think there is still so much to be done on the application layer of all of this, right? So what does it mean downstream? What can you do with this new technology, even if it doesn't improve further, which I think eventually still will? I think there's still so much to be done on the application layer. I think Sam Altman the other day said That's it doesn't matter who develops the best model. The winners of tomorrow are going to be the ones that actually find the use case for these models that are already deployed today and make sure that like they use it for providing value eventually.
Yes. All right, so now we're going to talk about, I'd like to talk about clients and ethics. How do clients react when you pitch AI production? Are they excited, nervous, skeptical? You kind of touched on that, but what's the feeling you're getting in the marketplace?
Well, certainly a lot of curiosity. So everybody is trying to understand, hey, how can I use it? How can I use it to serve my clients? Or if you're the brand, like you're actually trying to understand how can it bring value, right? So there's a lot of curiosity and a lot of exploration of what it can be done. And there's plenty. There's lots of low-hanging fruits there. I think the other reaction that they have is caution, right? Especially brands. Why? Because still we see a lot of AI slop around. And if you let yourself be conditioned by that, then you're going to be skeptical, right? So you're going to be like, should I use AI to do something if then the result is crap and it damages my brand? So there is a lot of caution on that. I think like it's also on the ethical point of view. We saw it with Coca-Cola, lots of backlash because, well, partly was not really well done. I think they could have done a better job overall. But it's also because people are scared, right? So there is a lot of, sorry, a lot of pushback from the audiences as well if they know that you didn't go through a traditional route. So there is a little bit of skepticism mixed with curiosity. And then the biggest concern of them all is legality that we hear in calls with clients. So there is a lot of concern about protection of data, especially if the product that you're trying to advertise is very sensible. Like, I don't know, Lamborghini wants to do a release of a new car that is still secret, right? They don't want you to use a model where you're sending pictures of that car to a server, God knows where, that can be used for training. And then all of a sudden, before the car is released, you can actually see the new model of Lamborghini, right? Like, so there is a little bit of concern around that. And on the legality of the models themselves, right? So we all know, and this should not be a secret, should not be something that we don't discuss, that AI models were trained on copyrighted material. I think we can all agree on that, right? So I think the concern is that eventually there's going to be a little bit of backlash in terms of rights. But again, that is something that depends on the big tech companies, I think. So what we can try to do as a studio is to limit the risk or manage the risk. So, for example, in terms of copyright, we provide traces, we provide an audit if we're asked to, of all the prompts that we actually use to get to the final product. And that, for example, mitigates the concern that I'm using in my prompt, use Wes Anderson composition, or all of this kind of stuff where you're making a direct reference to a specific style or to a specific copyrighted material. So we're able to mitigate that, but just by then giving the prompts to the brand. So that's one thing. The other is more trying to sandbox what you're doing. It still comes at a trade-off, I think, in terms of cost, in terms of quality, because if you're using like the closed source model, so the Googles, the Klings of this world, you get higher quality than if you use open source. But yeah, in one case, you're sending your data to them. If you use open source and it's on your local machine or on a private cloud instance, you can mitigate the risk of data leaking out, right? So I think today it's about reassuring the clients because there is curiosity. There is, as I said before, the value proposition is clear for them. So they absolutely want to test this. But yeah, you have to be able to mitigate the concerns.
Interesting. And just finally on that point, what worries you about where this could go? You know, we were talking about ethics and stuff, and is there any concerns that you have? You know, do you, for example, as an AI studio, realize the potential and the incredible speed that things are moving? We talk about human interaction, but do you think, for example, there'll come a day relatively soon when they say, I want to film like Scorsese, I want to film like, you know, any famous actor, any famous, you know, in the style of, do you think it's going to go full automated in the future, as an example, or is there anything that worries you from a business perspective?
Well, there's a couple of things both on the ethical side and the business side that worries me. So I come from news, and back then, right, like in my previous company, the big conversation was about misinformation and deep fakes and all of that. Like already 1 year before, like we actually achieved any decent quality, it was a big topic at industry conferences where you can see now you can basically dub and lip sync very well. So you can take an authority or an official spokesperson for a country and just completely change what they're saying. So I think that is the biggest concern that I have, that eventually, as all technology can be used for good and bad, and eventually the bad players are going to use it and be very efficient at doing so. So I think there should be, in that case, like a way to sort of watermark AI content. I think like the model providers are responsible to a certain extent to make sure that there is any digital possible way that that content is identifiable, that if a clip was generated with AI, there is a pixel or whatever that tells the platforms where they're distributed that that content was AI generated, right?
Yes.
So that's
Like
if you upload it
watermarking.
yeah, right now it's left to the individual people, right? So like when I upload the post on Instagram now, they ask, is there any AI here? And I can say yes or no, right?
Yes.
Obviously, if I'm a well-intended person, I'm gonna say yes for sure. If I'm ill-intended, then probably I'm gonna say, well, no AI here. You shouldn't be able to have that agency. Like that sort of thing should be sorted out by the distribution platforms, where if you upload a content and it was generated with AI, it automatically gets labeled. And I think like that would be a great thing for everybody to do. On the business side, I'm more concerned about, especially on the IP side in general media, I would say, is that we're entering a historical moment of abundance of media. It's already the case where with Netflix and Amazon and everything, I'm realizing more and more that I'm not giving the value to movies that I used to. Because before, going to the movies was an experience, right? It was something like I'm doing maybe once a week, or I'm going to rent my Blockbuster, my DVD, and watch it with the whole family. And right now, it's just like, yeah, turn it on, and you're just like doing it there. Then there was a quote from somebody, I don't remember who, that said that they have to simplify plots now because they have to assume that people are watching also their phone while they're watching Netflix. So take that as the status today, extrapolate 2 years in the future. If everybody can do a movie rather easier, in an easier way, there's going to be more and more content. So there's going to be more content on social. I think eventually people might get tired of all of this content and probably go back to touching ground, and having real human experiences. That's why you're seeing also like a big explosion on and investments on festivals, retreats, all of that, because I think eventually people will become overwhelmed.
Those are really interesting points you make. I've just had a little experience where I had this sort of, my wife got Mubi, the independent film channel, like a Netflix version of.
Yeah.
And it was like the best way for me to describe it. A lot of old films that I know of, which were fantastic to watch again, but there were some new ones I hadn't seen, some foreign films. Palme d'Or winners, and you're like, wow, this is going to be great. And you watch it and it's a completely different pace, a completely different level. It is like, the best way to describe it was just like reading.
Yeah.
Which I've tried to start doing a lot more again. I used to read all the time and I've stopped reading. I've been using audiobooks. And now it's really interesting. I only can measure things from my own awareness, my own reality in a lot of ways. And I've noticed now I've started, you get a book, and it feels like it's like a new algorithm retraining my mind. I feel that we're, Jack Dorsey recently said that we need to be cautious about algorithms and how they're reprogramming us all. I think there's something really fascinating in that. And I think it was really interesting watching just independent films, how different they are from Netflix films and the pacing of that. So
because they're engineered to basically
to keep you watching.
to keep you watching. And I mean, in my previous experience, news is the same kind of cycle, right? Like we literally like base all of our engineering around the habit formation loop from Nir Eyal. I don't know if you know the guy. Basically, he's a guru in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley about building habits. And I mean, all these platforms are engineered after those principles. Is to give you rewards, to make you invested, so that you come back day after day and after day, right? So like, and you have to be very careful of that, especially if we're going into a world where not just the algorithm can be personalized to you in terms of what I'm showing to you, but also if media comes to a point where even the content itself can be tailored one-to-one. So
Yes.
a movie can have a different, like,
Depending
that's
on
also,
your
yeah, on your
preferences and
taste.
your likes, it's everything's customizable,
Yes.
optimized for your viewing, optimization.
And that's so dangerous for society, to be honest, because I believe that we need shared stories. I believe we need shared narratives to actually have a functioning society. I think like that's also another risk that I'm seeing, where if everything becomes personalized, what am I gonna talk to you on the coffee machine at work, right? Like if we don't watch the same series, if we don't watch the same movies, or they're different or slightly different, what are we gonna talk about? If the algorithm shows you like misinformation and I'm seeing the other side, and then there is attrition because we literally have different sources, I think that is like a big risk with these technologies that we should all be aware of.
Yeah, and I think most people aren't aware of them. They sort of talk about them in a nebulous way, but it's a real issue, and I think that's why we're seeing so much polarization in
Yeah,
society.
absolutely.
I'm very conscious that anything I watch and any media I consume, if it frustrates me and gets me emotional, I know it's normally because I'm being manipulated.
Yeah,
And
true.
it's difficult to gauge though. I'm still doom scrolling at night and things like that. It's a challenge. I know, and yet I'm doing, and I'm still, I go to the gym. I'm not smoking or anything. I'm not doing any of those things. But at the same time, it's like I do feel that we're going to have, it's going to be like the smoking of the future. People are going to be like, "What are you doing?" I really think that. Okay, so conscious of time, so let's move on.
Yeah,
It's been really interesting. I loved your answers so far. They've been excellent. They've been really insightful. So
thank you.
future sort of this is a future section and a sort of a quick fire, and then there'll be a quick fire bit. But let's look ahead. In 3 years, what is Anima? Is it a studio? Is it a platform? Is it something else? And so let's start with that.
Hopefully, I'm gonna be very ambitious. We're the next Warner Bros. Or like we really like, as I said, started from a storytelling perspective. Although we're not traditionally storytellers, but we really have a passion for it. And eventually, like I believe we can be a creative studio that brings like high quality entertainment in the formats that are going to be most suited. And I think there is a huge opportunity to actually bring back, well, not bring back, but actually bring for the first time to the screens, so in a visual experience, a lot of the IPs that were before neglected just because of risk, right? Like I have so many books that I love that I don't have a cinematic adaptation because you're not sure if it's worth the risk. And I think we proved with the approach that we had with the TikTok that you can actually test these IPs in a very low risk environment, such as like producing very short content, trailers, this kind of stuff. Validate if there is an audience, and then decide whether to go into production or not. I think like we've been pioneering this approach. I think we're going to be a big player, hopefully, in this new media segment that is going to be created. So I think if you ask me, 3 years from now, we're a big entertainment studio.
Amazing. And would you still build it with the same people? I mean, you've got to say yes.
Yeah, of course, they're watching probably. So no, I absolutely would do it with the same people. I still believe that because we don't come from the traditional background, that we have to necessarily surround ourselves of people that actually have been in this industry for a long time. So I would say I would start it with the same people, but I would love for us to extend it and to establish partnerships with producers, actors, and like the whole circus that come with the filmmaking. because I think it's very important.
Excellent. And now we're going to go to a quick fire. So just a few here. We're just sort of rounding everything up now. So best AI tool right now. What do you think?
Ooh, that's
I got
tough.
Nana Banana Pro last week. So where are you at?
Yeah, I think like overall, I'm not gonna name a tool. I think it's the Google suite of tools.
Okay.
And that is because I also think that they have an unfair competitive advantage. They have YouTube, which is a huge data, basically database, data lake that they can take from. So I think like in this space specifically, it's gonna become the best suits for all creators out there. I think like right now, Kling, it's also up there in terms of video. Dream, these are all more or less on par. Each has their own strengths and weaknesses. So I think like these three are probably the best ones. But if I had to bet money and invest in stocks, for example, I would bet on Google.
That's a good call. Most overrated feature.
Most overrated feature in like AI generative workflows.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I wouldn't know. Like I think like it's important that we explore today. Like I can tell you the ones that I love. But like there's none that I'm saying like this is not
Because
okay.
everything's moving so much. It's like if something's not
Yeah.
off, then there's something. Yeah, I get what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, and
And
also like
biggest,
coming from tech, I know how important it is to actually also make wrong decisions, like because you
Yes.
learn also from that. So like I think if they put out a feature and see that the usage is not there, they can just kill it, right? Like I think they're doing the right thing in just like releasing as much as they can.
That's really interesting. And one skill every creative needs at the moment.
Persistence. And if you want, I can elaborate on that. But as I said before, it is not as easy as clicking one button and you get something. I think like I just worked on the movie. I think for 16 minutes, we spent around 10,000 euros in credits, in AI credits. And that is like 3, 4, 5,000 generations that we had to do. And like to get the things right, you really need persistence. You really need to just deep dive into it. It is sometimes even more tedious, I think, than traditional, to be honest. So you got to be persistent. Stay strong, my friend.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to just do Riccardo Fredro, co-founder of Anima Studios. Thank you so much for coming on AdBits. If people want to see your work, we'll link it below. This episode was supported by 2.0 Film. We service productions across Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Northern Italy, and Austria. Fast turnarounds, top-tier crews, and stunning locations. If you've got any bids for 2.0 Film, give me a call. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, share it, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening.